here we are, everybody. Another afternoon tea time live stream. Let me get to YouTube. Computer's so far away I can't read the comments from way over there, but let's see here. My channel, live stream. Turn down the volume. Let's see here. Alright, who do we got here? Hello Glenn, hello Haley, hello Anne, hello RMS Queen Mary. Mr. Rex says, this really means that it's time to spill the tea. Yes. Hello Kevin Sutherland. Let's see here. RMS Queen Mary says, time for tea and cucumber sandwiches. Yes, indeed. I got all the same stuff set up for today. Let's see here. Hello, Coronia. Hello, John Spencer. Oh, it says, hello, my name is Patrick. So, okay, so hello, Patrick, then. Hello, VC Allen. Hello, Simon. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock over here, too. That means it's time for tea. Mr. Rex says, get binoculars. Yeah. Mid-South Explorer says, hello. Hello, everybody. So right now the water is boiling. I can add it to my teapot. I'll explain a little bit more as we go, because I know there's still a lot of brand new people who are not used to watching this thing. So, be right back. First thing we gotta do is dump that out. Or not all of it, actually. Some of it can stay. So half hot tap water, half hot tap water on the teapot. Maybe I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, kinda, you can kinda see it. Alright. Alright, time to add half boiling water to the teapot. Alright, so there was already hot tap water in the teapot and the teacup, but I dumped out half of it. Added boiling water to top it off, so that way it gets heated up in 2 stages before I fully add 100% boiling water to the teapot. Oh, this is how we prevent this old china from cracking and breaking. Let's see here. Glenn says it's midnight here in England. Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot you had a comment up above that said you're in bed. Yeah. You know, it's kind of cool. Like, I really like doing this tea time thing because, for one thing, it brings me back to the Cunard ships. You know, or frankly, any ocean liner. This old tea set, for anybody who's here that's new, is from both the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary. Both are 1930s ships. Queen Mary started service in 1936. Queen Elizabeth technically was launched in 1938, but didn't begin service until after the war. But nevertheless, they are both Art Deco ships, and their china was Art Deco as well. That's really hot. Yeah, the teapot, for instance, is a cube. So one of the things I really like about it about this whole tea set is that it was designed for everybody to use on the ship. So it couldn't be too frilly, or else the men wouldn't want to have their tea during tea time. But it couldn't be too masculine, because then the women wouldn't feel right drinking from it. It would be too strange. So they kind of came up with a compromise. And what I like to tell people, because I read this in a blog before about these things, but you'll notice that there are stripes on all the stuff. There's 2 dark yellow stripes and 1 gray stripe. It's supposed to represent the sunset over the dark waters of the Atlantic. And of course, the whole cube idea is it's kind of this Art Deco pattern. It sort of predates the Queen Mary, to be totally honest, but the color scheme and the design of it was definitely designed for the Queen Mary. So it's a really neat set. Yeah, so I love it. And then what we got here is we got traditional tea biscuits. These are chocolate-covered digestives. And then these are Scottish shortbread. The Scottish shortbread's pretty expensive for me to get, but I can get it in bulk, so at least that works, you know. Lasts a while. In a moment, because it's time for me to actually add the full boiling water to the teapot. But let me see. Hold on. Dump this out. So now I dump out the warming water from the teapot. Set that down there. I don't yet have a kettle, so I just use a pot of hot boiling water. I put a cover over the pot. Interesting thing for those of you who like to cook at home, if you ever have anything boiling and you need to remove the lid from the boiling pot, you always, when you open the lid, let's just pretend this is a pot, you always open the lid away from you and then allow the steam to escape. If you open towards you, the steam will hit you directly. Okay, so now that's the full boiling water in the teapot. I have my tea infuser here, and I will put that in and let that sit. What time is it? 4:08, so 4:13, I think. Yeah. About 5 minutes is what I like to do, so 4:13 I'll check on the teapot. But what are we having today? Well, so this was part of a set I bought thanks to someone who donated to my channel, so that way I could actually get more tea besides English breakfast tea. Today we are having, let's see here, Twining's Earl Grey. Yep, so authentic British company. And Earl Grey tea. What was really cool is I've had Earl Grey tea before, but I've had it in like packets, and it was from some other company, like some knockoff company. When I opened this today, the smell, the aroma was beautiful. Oh yeah, it says it right there. Aromatic black tea blend scented with a citrus bergamot flavor. Or is it bergamot? I'm pretty sure that's a French word, bergamot. Flavor. Anyway, it smells delicious. Like, very citrusy, and there's like a hint of, it almost smells like fresh cracked pepper, but with citrus, and it's an amazing smell. Like, my God. So I'm really excited to try that. I haven't had any Earl Grey tea in at least 15 years. That's how long it's been. And what I had, I know for certain was crap. So this, I'm excited to try. So anyway, yeah, it's really cold here in the Portland area. Like right now, it's 36 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just 4 degrees above freezing. So I have to make sure I bring up the temperature of these vessels slowly, so that way I don't crack them, because they are very old. The oldest ones date back to the early 1950s, and the newest ones date back to 1967. So, very old china. All right, let's see what people are saying. Make sure okay, so Coronia says, how did you get your Cunard Dual C Queens poster? So this poster, it's a digital print that someone on eBay was selling. I think I got it for, I think $11 or $13 or something like that. And it's just a print of the original, and it's not even the same size. This is smaller than the original, but it's been lovingly restored in a way. So the original is very dull, like a lot of the colors have faded, so the person went back and enhanced the color on it so it looks a lot more like it would have back when the original posters were printed. So I really love this poster. I want to get another Cunard poster, but the only ones being sold on eBay right now, I don't really want that badly. I'm hoping I'll find something else, something with the Queen Mary on it. I'll take something with the Queen Elizabeth on it if I can find a good enough poster, but we'll see. Thomas says, Alex, I'm thinking about buying an original Queen Mary tea creamer. How much did you pay for yours? Well, I carefully scouted out each of these individual things over the course of several months. I didn't want to pay too much for them, but yeah, so the creamer, which is the smaller of these two things, so yeah, so these two look identical, but the creamer is the smaller one. This bigger one is the hot water jug, which I don't use because it's just another thing I'd have to wash after. But yeah, so the creamer, as you can see, it's pretty small. I bought this. It came with the sugar bowl and one of the teapots. I think the broken one. It came with the broken teapot. And together I got the set for, I think, those three items, $130. But like I said, like these creamers, right now, some of them are going for $120 on eBay. But I got it for so cheap because I usually wait for someone who doesn't even know what these things are to post them. And as soon as they described the dimensions, like the tiny dimensions of that creamer, I knew, because they labeled it as like a hot water jug or something, or pitcher or something like that. And I was like, that's not a pitcher, that's a creamer. So anyway, my point is that I usually wait for the people who have no idea what this stuff is or their significance, who post on eBay and don't even know like what price they could go for, and then I swoop in and buy it. So I got the creamer. Probably if you like, so it was $130 for the teapot, the creamer, the sugar bowl. So maybe at most I paid technically maybe $30 for that creamer. But that's how I got all this stuff, was I carefully waited until people posted each of these things on eBay for prices that were way below what they're worth. So, Brandon Bush says, I have the same Disneyland Railroad poster, one of my favorites. Oh, it's time for the tea. Yeah, I love that Disneyland Railroad poster behind me. It's so cool. There's a lot of Disneyland Railroad posters, but that particular one is my favorite. Alright. I have a little steel saucer back here that you can't see, but I set the tea infuser on the little steel saucer. Yeah, and the tea, we can cover that up. The lids for these teapots have these little fins. I don't know if you can, it's probably too bright, but there's these little porcelain fins that prevent the lid from the teapot from sliding off the teapot, because these were built for an ocean liner. And the person who had this teapot, they didn't realize that what those fins were for, and they just set the lid into the teapot and smashed it and broke the little fins off. So if you own one of these teapots, be aware that they have little fins that are designed to prevent the teapot from, or the teapot lid from sliding off the teapot while sitting stationary. So when you open the teapot lid, you must open it like I described opening the lid to a pot, which is to open like that first and then slide out this way. Alright, so where's the hot water thing? Time to pour the tea. And like I said, today is Earl Grey. Do I really only have 7 people watching? No, I have 39. That's interesting. Alright. Hold the lid. Pour the tea. There we go. Don't fill it all the way. Where's my sugar? Sugar here. One and a half. Second spoon for stirring. Stir with the spoon back and forth, not around and around. And then the creamer. These creamers have such a shallow lip that if you don't want it to, like, if you don't want the cream to spill off the side, you just have to go for it. You just have to, like, have the courage of your convictions to just pour the cream, and then you won't have any spills. So what was really cool was yesterday I went to my sister's house and I had tea with my sister and her husband. She has her own tea set. It's some German China porcelain tea set with like little roses painted on it and stuff. Really neat. I actually got it for her for Christmas. That's why I think it's so neat. But she loves that thing. And so the 3 of us, we had tea, and I made a whole bunch of these tea sandwiches, and they loved these tea sandwiches. They ate all of them. And then I shared some digestives and Scottish shortbread. I told, my sister says, "What are these cookies?" I go, "They're not cookies, they're tea biscuits." And she goes, "Oh, okay, what are they?" I'm like, "Well, they're called digestives." And she's like, "What?" And I remember my brother-in-law was like, "Are they actual digestives?" I'm like, "I don't think so." I was like, but that's what the particular tea biscuit is called. It's called a digestive, but it's essentially a graham cracker with chocolate on it. So they loved it. They dipped it in the tea. They loved it. Let's see. Anne says, "My McVitie's digestive biscuits arrived today. Yay, just in time for afternoon tea." Awesome. Yeah, I love these digestive biscuits. They're so good. Oh, John says, my real name isn't Patrick, just trying to act like the flight attendant on the attraction. Yeah. Kenneth says, "Hey Alex, have you thought about getting a bike to get around since you don't have a car?" I used to have a bike, but the problem is that so when I worked for Disney, I got several injuries while working there because when I worked as a busboy, we had a very labor-intensive job. So I've actually hurt my back several times, and when I worked for Bodine Bakery, I got carpal tunnel syndrome in both arms. So actually, when I try to be on a bike and I have to have my hands like this, my back is hurting the entire time, and I actually lose all feeling in my hands after like 10 minutes of riding a bike. So what happens is I actually crashed one time. I crashed my bike in the middle of a street because I couldn't feel my hands anymore and I couldn't grip the thing, so I had to get rid of my bike. Let's see. Pony Horton says pie R square, no cake R square. I'm not sure what that means. Let's see. Where is Kraken Teeth Gaming says, "I wish I could buy a teapot and set if it wasn't so girly to have one. Makes me sad." Well, Kraken, you have to understand, having a tea set isn't girly. In fact, my brother-in-law was talking with me about this yesterday. Now, my brother-in-law is like one of the most masculine guys you'll ever know. He watches pro wrestling. He used to train as an MMA fighter. He is like, you know, beer drinking, hard liquor swigging, like, you know, burly man with a beard and everything. Total, like, masculine guy. And here he was yesterday having tea with me and my sister. And he loved it. He said, you know, this is a cultural thing. Tea is what they do in, you know, in the UK and other parts of the world as well. And, you know, the thing is like, he was like, you know, because I told him, I said, you know, someone commented on one of my videos that it was kind of gay that I had all this. And, well, gay is a whole separate issue. He was like, yeah, I resent that. He's like, this is a cultural thing. This is what people have. So having a teapot and having a tea set doesn't mean you're girly. It means you're just participating in a tradition that people do in other countries. And, you know, you don't have to buy a teapot that has, you know, all kinds of flowers and girly stuff on it. If that's what you want, then get it. Don't let people dictate for you what you should or shouldn't like. But if that's not your style, you can do something that fits your style more. If you want something that's more conservative looking, where it's just a plain white teapot, or if you want something that has stripes or whatever, you know, one of the things I liked about this tea set was I looked at stuff from White Star Line, I looked at stuff like that, and the frilliness of it didn't match my personal feel. And when I saw this tea set from Queen Mary, not only was it from Queen Mary and I loved it because of that, but I looked at it, I'm like, you know, this actually looks more like me. This looks like something I would do. It's neither, you know, overly feminine, neither overly masculine. It's just, it looks nice to me. So you shouldn't feel like held back by something you want just because you feel like other people are going to make fun of you. In fact, I've had people make fun of me for doing this live stream, but I don't really care. It's like, you know, I enjoy this. You know, my brother-in-law enjoyed it, my sister enjoyed it, you know, and a lot of my friends actually were pretty, like, impressed by this. You know, I have friends who are coming this weekend who are going to have tea with me. Not at tea time, because we're going to be doing something during that time, but we'll be doing it early, you know, and so they're excited to try it, you know, so good. So good. All right. Yeah, Earl Grey, I gotta try this. All right. That was really good. Oh my gosh. This Earl Grey tea is really smooth, and it tastes citrusy. Of course, I put cream and sugar, so I guess that counts as a London fog. But now I understand why some people just have black Earl Grey with a slice of lemon. Now I can see why. Because when I had my crappy Earl Grey tea 15 years ago, I was like, who would have this with lemon? I had to fill it with sugar and cream. But I can see why now. That is so good. Yeah, Pony Horton says, no judgment, tea sets don't have to be girly. Yeah, they don't have to be girly. I mean, look at what's on the Queen Mary 2 right now. They serve, you know, men, women, people of any gender, the tea from those tea sets currently on Queen Mary 2, which sails across the Atlantic currently. And like I said, the tea sets that the Cunard ships have, they're designed so that way people everywhere, they're designed to be, what's the word, like, just more versatile when it comes to the different people's styles and tastes, which is why they're kind of, I guess some people would say, plain looking. But, yeah. Kevin says, I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and it is currently 0 degrees. Whoa. That is cold. Dom Wiggins says, the second you stop worrying about what other people think of you, life becomes much more enjoyable. Amen to that. I've always, when I was younger, I used to worry about everything people thought about me. People used to make fun of my voice because they said it sounded really feminine and girly, and I never tried to make it sound that way. That's just how I sound, you know. I grew up around a bunch of women, you know, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. I grew up around my mom, my sister, my aunt. Well, all my aunts, actually. There was very few men in my life besides, you know, my dad. But I mean, like, I just developed a way of talking just like they did. That's how everybody grows up. You know, you talk like the people who you grew up with. And so I couldn't help it, and I always felt really self-conscious about it. But one day, you know, I just went, who gives a crap what people think? This is my life, not theirs. And so I just do whatever I want, whether or not people think it's girly or whatever. You know, I buy what I want, I enjoy what I want, and I live my life my way. So, yeah. Yeah, Kraken says it's not safe to be me where I'm from. Alright, well that makes a point, I guess. But, yeah. If it's... Whenever it's safe to be you, be you. Let's see here. Mishycat says, hey Alex, I ended up getting chocolate digestives, but mine got left in the car, so now they're all stuck together. I'm wondering if there's a way to salvage them. There is. So they might look a little messed up now because they're stuck together, but what you can do is you can stick the whole like log of digestives in the refrigerator or the freezer. I suggest the refrigerator though. And unless it's open. If it's open, an open box, I would put it in a tightly sealed container, even a Ziploc bag that you smush all the air out of. You just don't want humidity in there. And then I would stick it in the refrigerator, let it get really cold, and then I would take like a butter knife or something and just carefully snap each piece off of each other. If they are so smushed and so melted together, then possibly the only way to do it is the opposite, is to let them get a little warm so the chocolate gets melty, and then peel them off each other and then refrigerate them to harden the chocolate again. So it could go either way. If the first method of refrigeration doesn't work, then just let them melt again and peel them all off and then refrigerate them. Yeah. Dom Wiggins says, as a Brit working with Americans, I struggle to get them to drink tea over coffee. Yeah, there's definitely a huge like coffee society here, and I grew up drinking coffee. That's why I'm still new to tea. Grew up drinking coffee, but the problem with coffee is that as I'm getting older, I'm getting more and more sensitive to the levels of caffeine that's in coffee. You know, my heart starts to beat crazy, and it just doesn't feel good after I'm on coffee. So the tea has less caffeine in it, so therefore actually like right now, like I could finish this whole pot of tea and I'll still feel great. I'll feel energized, but not, you know, not overly like spazzy. So I'm starting to really like the idea of having tea instead of coffee. In fact, this morning I was really tired and I thought I'm going to have some tea. I didn't brew it like this. What I did was I separately make... What am I trying to say? Think, Alex. During the morning, sometimes I will make chai tea. And I do it from scratch, actually. I used to buy, like bottles of concentrated chai. I know a company that does it really, really well, so I used to buy from that company. But it's really expensive per bottle, so I thought, why don't I just make it myself? People make it themselves all the time in India. So I actually make it myself. I'll show you one of the ingredients. This here is a box of Taj Mahal tea. This was really cheap. This whole box, which is like 15 ounces or 450 grams, cost me about $11. And then inside, the reason why I got this tea is because they kind of grind it up like coffee. I don't know if you can see, but essentially it's ground up into little granules, kind of like coffee, and you need that when you make a chai tea from home. And the kind of chai I have that the kind of chai I make at home, I can't remember the name of it, but those of you who are Indian or you've had it before, you'll know. I make a ginger cardamom tea. So instead of, like a lot of people have the masala chai, I make a ginger cardamom chai. So I bought a whole thing of cardamom pods. I have my ginger that I cut up, and then I put that in a boil. I have cinnamon sticks that I break apart, and I boil that. I only take little bits of the bark at a time, like these little pieces at the bottom. And you boil that, and I could tell you the whole thing, but yeah, I even put stuff in there like a pinch of cracked pepper and whatever. You boil, add the cream, boil. Add a little bit of sugar at the very end, and you serve it. It's so good. And Indian people have that all the time. And like I said, I make it from home because it's actually cheaper in the long run to make it myself than to buy it in bottles. And it tastes better, in my opinion. So, really good. I better have one of these sandwiches, but I want to see what... Yes, Eric, these are cucumber sandwiches. So, they're made with slices of cucumber, and the spread, for those who haven't heard yet, the spread is made of 2 parts cream cheese to 1 part mayonnaise, and then you season it with freshly chopped dill, a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of salt, mix that together, spread it on the bread, layer the cucumbers on it, refrigerate it so it hardens a little bit, bring it out before you want to serve it, and cut it into fingers. So it's my favorite thing to have with tea. Let me see here. Although today, I put a little bit too much mayonnaise in it, so it's a little bit liquidy. Well, not liquidy, but softer. If you put cream cheese, it won't fall apart so easily. More cream cheese to mayonnaise, I mean. It won't fall apart so easily. My favorite tea so far. Well, when it comes to having a loose leaf tea brewed this way, I would say, let me see. It might be the Irish breakfast tea. So far I've had English breakfast, Irish breakfast, and now Earl Grey. When it comes to brewing it just like this in a teapot and everything, I would say the Irish breakfast tea is my favorite. Then the next up would be the English breakfast. And then the Earl Grey is at the end, only because the Earl Grey is really good. I really like it. But I can't see myself having it every day. That's why. If I was stuck with one tea every single day for like a month, it would probably have to be Irish breakfast tea. So that's why I'm going to rank it like that. But all three, I like them so much, especially the Earl Grey. It's just so good. But yeah, that's how I'm going to put it. But when it comes to my favorite tea of all time, it's going to have to be the the chai tea I was just describing to you. It's so good. Okay. Mike Marin says, I also have a tea set and I'm an aircraft mechanic. Yeah, exactly. It's a cultural thing. It's not girly or masculine or anything. It's a cultural thing, you know. In America, there's a lot of hang-ups about men having a tea set because we don't have that culture here. But, you know, in other parts of the world, especially the UK, it's part of the culture. It's no one even thinks twice if a guy's like, oh, I'm gonna go have a cup of tea. It's, you know, or a cuppa as they call it. But they don't think twice about it because that's just how it is. It's kind of like how in India, best friends, whether they're, you know, a guy and a guy, a girl and a girl, or whatever, they'll hold hands if they're best friends. And you see that a lot. But in America, if two friends held hands, they'd be like, oh, you're gay, or oh, you're lesbian. And it's just like, that people have such a narrow view of the world. It's just funny. But Pony Horton says, Alex, it's a very attractive tea set. Thank you. I really like it. It's got a nice Art Deco feel to it. If I had all the money in the world, I would decorate my house to be like all Art Deco. But I'll have to settle for this for now. Goofy Earl says Earl Grey was good enough for Captain Picard, so I drink it too. Eric Nelson says, is this a new apartment? Yes. You can see the full apartment tour where I describe all the stuff I have on the Alex Adner channel, spelled ADNER. So I have the full tour there, or there's a brief 3-minute tour on this channel, Alex the Historian, that I published like less than a week ago, I think. Ingrid says, Earl Grey is my go-to tea. I buy the 100-bag box at World Market. This reminds me, did anyone go to that beautiful tea room they opened on the Queen Mary next to the Princess Diana exhibit? I heard about the tea room, but I've never been on there. In fact, a friend of mine tells me that before the Queen Mary closed for the pandemic, the tea room was long closed by then. So, yeah. What's really sad is the Princess Diana exhibit, all the dresses and stuff from Princess Diana and her personal belongings, those various things were owned by like several like women who put together the exhibit. I heard that those things are all still there, and there's a possibility that, you know, some of them may not be well taken care of. So I hope that's not the case. But Pony Horton says, Alex, serious question. What do those of us who don't like tea, just don't like the taste, when invited to formal tea? Can we opt for another beverage? I'll have to ask my folks in the chat who are British what they can do, because if you're invited to a formal tea, generally you should be able to drink. But you know what? I heard that during some afternoon teas and some high teas, there are like other things served, like lemonade, for instance. So if they have that, you can just drink lemonade. And then someone on YouTube said that sometimes they offer coffee, and whenever they host a tea or something, so they offer coffee for people who don't like tea. But I would like to say that I used to be a person who didn't like tea. I didn't like the taste. But now that I'm looking back on it, I think all the tea I've had in the past was just crap. And I got better stuff now. So, and I actually kind of like it. Well, kind of. I really like it. So I think that's probably what it is. It's like if you get an American brand or an off-brand tea, it just doesn't taste good. Mysterious Wanderer asks, is there good coffee at Disneyland? It depends on who you ask, but if you ask me, no. There's no good coffee at Disneyland, but some people really like Starbucks coffee, so they'll say go to Starbucks. I think Starbucks is the best coffee you will get at Disneyland. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's the best coffee you can get at Disneyland. I don't personally consider Starbucks good. To me, Starbucks is like McDonald's. It's like I drink it because it's there and there's no other choice. So McDonald's is kind of like that for me. Like, I'll have McDonald's if I've exhausted all other options for a meal, and McDonald's is like the one fast food place that I usually enjoy, you know, if there's none others around. So that's kind of my take on it. Coronia Park says, Alex, what is your advice for a first-time tea drinker? First-time tea drinker. If you've never had tea before, let's say you were invited to a tea service. If they're having either English breakfast tea, Scottish breakfast tea, Irish breakfast tea, or Earl Grey, I would say try adding cream and sugar to it, and you might feel like it's almost like coffee in a way. And then you can slowly work your way to having it like just straight black tea without any cream and sugar. Some people never in their lives will have it black. So Earl Grey is one of those where you can. But yeah, I would start with those. And then, or you can even, if it's not even a formal thing, try herbal teas. Because like actual teas use tea leaves. Herbal teas don't have any tea in them. They're just various herbs and flavors that are steeped into a tea. So some people really like chamomile. I don't see why, but they do. And that's an herbal tea. There's not a single tea leaf in there. It's yeah. Goofy Rolls says they call it burnt coffee. Yeah, it's burnt coffee. That's exactly what it is. Goofy Roll says, I'm weird, but I love the fruit-flavored teas. Yeah. Like, this Earl Grey tastes, like, very citrusy. I actually kind of like it. Derpy Possum says, Alex, what's your favorite song from the Queen Mary's era? My favorite song so far from Queen Mary's era is actually a song about the Queen Mary itself. It's called Somewhere at Sea, and it was composed by Henry Hall. Yeah, so you can look that up. Henry Hall, Somewhere at Sea. And it was specifically written for the Queen Mary, for her maiden voyage. It's a really cool song. Haley says, did you hear that Disney stole a tiki room design from TikTok artist? No, I didn't hear that. Mishy Cat says, thanks a bunch for the advice, Alex. I ended up buying 3 packs. It seems the one I opened was the only one to be all stuck together. I will try the fridge method after I find a big enough Ziploc bag. Kenneth says, I fit the description of your brother-in-law, but love ocean liners, Downton Abbey. I love Downton Abbey, too. Drive a 31-year-old white Volvo. I envy your tea set. Be yourself always. Who cares what others think? Exactly. Glenn says, I'm a hotel manager. We serve Prosecco tea. I've never heard of that one. Prosecco tea. Let's see here. Alrighty. Glenn says, or fruit-infused tea. Yeah, fruit-infused tea is really good for first-time tea drinkers. Goofy Roll says, good question. Is tea, should it be hot, tepid, or cold? Depends on what you're drinking. I mean, if you're drinking a southern sweet tea, it needs to be cold. If you're drinking a tea like I'm drinking, it's got to be hot. I let it sit for so long while I'm talking to you guys that it just gets cold, and I still drink it after it's cold just because I've already brewed it, so. Even right now, mine is more like tepid. So let me just finish this one. Tisa says, I'm curious what people around the world think of Americans drinking sweet tea like in the South. That's a good question. Anybody here from outside of the U.S.? That's a good question. Have you ever heard of American Southern sweet tea or sun tea? So sweet teas in the South are basically usually a cheap and generalized blend of tea is used. It's brewed hot. It's kind of like a black tea, sort of. Usually very flavorful. Lots of fruity flavors in it. And then it's chilled, usually with ice, and it's served with a lot of sugar. It's made to be very sweet, and you drink it like that, as you would call it, black, but with lots of ice and sugar. And it's made to be very, very sweet. And that's the Southern way. That's the way to have the sweet tea. Sun tea is similar. My mother used to make sun tea. It's, instead of brewed in hot water, you let it steep for like a day in the sun. So you put the tea in room temperature water, or maybe slightly warm water. You leave it in the sun for like a whole day, and that will slowly brew the tea. And then, of course, you take that out, put a bunch of sugar, and serve it over ice. So those are two different kinds of Southern teas. So I want to know, have anybody from outside the country ever had Southern sweet or sun teas? And what do you think of the idea of sweet and sun teas? So, let's see. Thomas Brooks says, I love Somewhere at Sea. Yeah, me too. It's a great song. Let's see. KFC Gamer says, hi! Hello, KFC Gamer. Armis Queen Mary. Yeah, I know it's you. Bridevale says, what are your plans for the train layout you're going to set up? And is the silver/steel ash tray really butterfly wings? So the train set is currently in my sister's garage. It's so big, I have to wait for my friends to come up and visit to help me carry it up here. It's not that heavy. I could technically lift it myself, but it's so big I can't get it up the stairs by myself. But essentially it will take up this whole area behind me. It's 8 feet long by 4 feet wide. There's already some train track on it, and it is wired up. I've wired it so it's electrified, so I could technically set one of my model trains on it and get it rolling. I just haven't built any of the scenery yet. I'm still in the process of carving out the rock work and stuff from the foam. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I haven't worked on it in 2 years because it's been in the garage all this time. So I'm really excited to have that up here and film the process of me building it for my second channel, Alex Adner. And yeah, so the scale, for those of you who like model trains, the scale is called ON30, which stands for O scale narrow gauge 30-inch. And it's a type of narrow gauge system. So yeah, that's all I can describe about it. As for the butterfly wings, I'll bring that in just a second. I want to refill this before the rest of the tea gets... Yeah, that's already pretty... It's cooling down, so I don't want to let the tea get too cold. Okay. So, who was the one that asked? Bridevale asked about this souvenir. It's a souvenir ashtray. It was sold on the Queen Mary. This one probably dates back to the 1930s. It sits like this on a table with little steel feet, and a little place right here, to put your cigarette or cigar. And what it is it's iridescent, as you can see. It's kind of glowing in the light. The blue background that's iridescent is made of butterfly wings. That's how they did that. And there's a curved glass in front of it, and they painted the Queen Mary behind the glass. So it's called reverse painting on glass, and the Queen Mary is painted behind it. And so it was a souvenir sold on the Queen Mary. Even on the back, you can see there's kind of a interesting little crisscross pattern design. And it even says, made in England. So, really neat. Yeah, and I love this thing. I was really lucky to get this because others are in terrible shape because people actually used to use them after they bought them. And so a lot of them are in terrible shape. This one appears to have never, ever been used. Just put on display, apparently. But it's really cool because if you were to see this with your own eyes, you can actually see the little veins from the butterfly wings. So that's how you know it's true butterfly wing, as you can see the little veins. And there's about 4 of them that are all like overlapped together in a circle. So it's really neat. I actually really like this thing, and I was lucky to get it. Yeah, really neat. One of my treasured items. Derpy Possum says, tip, microwave a cup of southern sweet tea, drink it in front of a British person as if it's British hot tea, then proceed to watch their tears with great intrigue. RMS Queen Mary says, how do ships' fires start? That depends on what you mean, because in service, many coal ships had ship fires. So Titanic, for instance, had a coal fire. No, the coal fire had nothing to do with the sinking. That is a big rumor that is not true. But the Titanic did have a coal fire, which were very common because the coal was kept right next to the boilers, which were constantly burning. So there was a lot of ship fires back then. But when it comes to accidental fires that destroy a ship, such as what happened to the RMS Queen Elizabeth in 1972, things like that happen from usually short-circuiting of stuff, or maybe people leave something on all night when they don't mean to, and so it would get hot and it would burn down the ship. Thankfully, today we don't have that many things that can cause a fire as easily as back then. So, for instance, a lot of our lights are LED. LED lights can get hot, but not nearly as hot as incandescent bulbs used to. They used to get so hot that they could melt the wiring. Thankfully, LED lighting doesn't do that, so if the Queen Mary was replaced with a bunch of LED lighting, which it should, that would help reduce fires. Then also, a lot of our machinery and stuff has timed timers that know that if it's not in use for a while, it'll shut off. So there's things like that. So there has been advancements in our technology that prevent such bad things from happening. But one of the reasons why those ocean liners used to burn was because they all had a bunch of wood in them. They were decorated with wood paneling. Even the Queen Mary is decorated with wood paneling. Now the interesting thing, you guys might like this. How many people are watching? Yeah, you guys might like this. So the Queen Mary, the wood panels, they're called veneers. Now I know a lot of people go, wait, veneers are usually fake wood. That's true. Today, if you have cabinets in your kitchen that are wood veneer, it's a fake wood that's like taped onto the backing of like a cabinet. But back then, wood veneer literally just meant a shaved piece of beautiful wood that was overlaid over cheaper wood. And that way you got the look of the beautiful wood without paying, for so much weight in solid wood. So the Queen Mary's wood paneling was made of 4 layers. There was a cheap wood backing, then there was a layer of asbestos, and the asbestos was designed to make it harder for the wood paneling to catch fire. if there was a fire, it took longer to burn. So there was a layer of asbestos, then another layer of cheap wood to sandwich that together, and then finally the fourth layer was the thin veneer of an expensive wood. So let's just say English ash wood, or let's say golden peroba wood. They would lay that veneer on top, and that's how the wood panels were made. So it's a lot like getting plywood, except expensive plywood. And that's how all of the panels on the Queen Mary were done. So while there is a layer of asbestos that makes it harder for the wood to burn, it still burns. And so that's how a ship can catch fire. Thankfully, the Queen Mary, in the Queen Mary's time, they had safety things. They had fire sprinklers. They had fire doors. So like a hotel, if you've ever been in a hotel and in the middle of a hallway, there's a random steel door that you have to pass through. It's called a fire door. It's designed to separate the building into separate compartments so the whole thing doesn't burn down. And the Queen Mary had those fire doors, and they still work to this day. But the reason why the Queen Elizabeth, the reason why the QE burned was because while it was being converted to a hotel, while it was being converted to a university, all those safety systems were shut off. The sprinklers were not functioning because it was still under conversion, and the fire doors were not electrically activated, so they couldn't have shut in the event of a fire. So that's why the whole thing burned down. But technically, the Queen Mary, even if there was a fire started on board, it should be very difficult to burn the whole ship down because all of its fire systems are working. And then, of course, there's some people who think the Queen Mary doesn't have working sprinklers. She does. In 2017 or 2018, one of those 2 years, they spent $5 million installing over 6,000 brand new sprinkler heads, replacing all of the sprinkler pipes, and installing brand new smoke detection and fire alarms. So the Queen Mary is up to date in terms of fire code. All of her fire hoses, which are placed every couple hundred feet throughout the ship, were replaced with brand new fire hoses, brand new fire extinguishers. The ship is up to code. So one of those things I wanted to make sure everybody knew. Alright, so Pony Horton says, Alex, do you ever need help with backdrop for your layout? I specialize in them. I used to do matte paintings. I don't have a backdrop for my layout only because it would have to be like 8 feet long and at least a foot or two tall, and I don't have the room for that. That itself is too much. So there's not going to be any backdrop for it. Yeah, but thank you though. Tyler Frederick says, love your teacup, beautiful. Thank you. It's a Queen Mary, from the Queen Mary. Old British people used to drink from this very teacup. Alright, let's see. The Empire of Waterloo says, guess what, Alex? My family watched your past live stream and we were inspired to make some Cunard cucumber sandwiches. We even had Irish breakfast tea with it. Awesome, that's so cool. Yeah, what I'm going to do for the Alex Adner channel is one day when I have the time, because I'm currently working on history videos for the Alex the Historian channel, but one day when I have time, after I've done doing some of those, I will film how I make these cucumber sandwiches. These are as close to the Cunard cucumber sandwiches that were served in the late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It's hard to say exactly because I don't have access to any written down menu. I have to look at these things and kind of be like, okay, looks like it has that, looks like it has that. Thankfully, I have a culinary education, so I can usually spot things when I look at them and go, okay, I know what that is. So if it's sticking out of, the thing, I can be like, oh, that's dill, so I know that kind of thing. So, so I'll film that. I'll also eventually do a thing where I film like how to set up a afternoon tea the Cunard way as close as I can, because again, I don't have the white gloves and the beautiful napkins, and so I'll do my best to set up the afternoon tea the Cunard way. So eventually I'll do stuff like that. I'd like to do pastries for afternoon tea, but at the moment I'm kind of tight on money and tight on time as well. So Tyler Frederick says, saw your Haunted Mansion video recently. Very good. I love the Haunted Mansion. Of the 4 paintings, my favorite is the one of the 3 men in quicksand. Yeah. Huh. The 3 men in quicksand. There you go. Mysterious Wanderer says, have you ever been to Las Vegas? Yes, I've been there at least 3 times. It's not my thing. It's for people who like to party. I'm not that kind of person. I'm the kind of person who has afternoon tea. So I've been to Vegas 3 times. And I've eaten at some of the buffets there. Very good, but I would never voluntarily want to go back to Vegas. Mike Mern says, Alex, there's a first class 7-piece Queen Mary tea set on eBay, $613, and a 6-piece third class for $408. I've seen them. If you guys want to own a Queen Mary or Queen Elizabeth tea set, here's a secret. The set I own that has the stripes, this is first class. The second and third classes, I'd say just to round it off into a neat and tidy sentence, second and third class, after the war, they had plain white tea sets. So there are lots of plain white stuff for sale on eBay. They're listed as like Cunard tea set or tea whatever, and a lot of people don't buy them because they see this set and they think no, that's the Cunard set. So when they see the blank ones, they think it's some cheap knockoff. As long as you they have pictures on eBay that show the Cunard logo and stuff. As long as it says either Cunard White Star or Cunard Steamship Company, and it doesn't say souvenir on it, then it was a real second or third class tea set that was used on the Queen Mary. So those are usually cheaper. I found a teapot. Not even kidding. Right now, there is a teapot on eBay. It's a second class teapot. It's going for $33, I think, with free shipping. $33. And it was used in either second or third class on the Queen Mary. If any of you want it, go get it, because people don't buy them because they think that the only Queen Mary tea sets have the stripes on them. So, but there are second and third class tea sets that are currently for sale for cheaper than the first class because no one knows they're there. All right. Dwarf Hobbit says, hello Alex, you've mentioned several times about previously owning a cafe. Do you mind sharing more about what that was like? Coffee, brewing, baked goods, the experience of running a cafe. Well, I don't want to bore people, but so I had this business partner. He was a good friend of mine. Knew him for years, and he saw that I had went to culinary school, and I was learning how to be a bread baker. I wanted to have a bakery that made artisan breads. That was what I went to school for. And I had worked at several restaurants. I knew how to cook, I knew how to bake, I knew how to do all kinds of things. But I was never being treated right at some of these jobs. Some of the jobs, they just didn't appreciate me. And he saw that. And he worked in the coffee industry. And I saw that he had been in the industry for years. You know, he was a manager for a major company. Not a coffee company, but a major company. And the thing was that he wasn't being treated right either, you know. And so one day we looked at each other and we were like, you know how to bake, you know how to make coffee, why don't we just work together and create a cafe? And so we went and got a place in Laguna Niguel, California, and we decided to open our own, business. So we were going to hire like a company to do the blueprints and stuff like that. But every time we looked for companies, everybody was trying to swindle us. They offered like, oh, we'll make you blueprints, but they're not going to be to scale. But you're still going to be charged thousands of dollars for them. And I looked at my friend, I'm like, I can do the blueprints and I'll make them to scale. So I ended up designing the whole place myself with blueprints to scale the way the government wanted them to be done. We did a lot of things ourselves, honestly. And we got the place open, and we sold baked goods. And that's when I discovered the customer doesn't know what they want. Do you or do anyone you know have ever had a giant muffin and you said, I can't eat this whole muffin, it's too big. I wish that they sold smaller muffins, because now I just paid all this money for a giant muffin that I can't eat. Well, I've heard it so many times that I thought, I'll make small muffins and sell those. No one bought them. And the reason why was because people had the perception that if they're paying for a smaller muffin, they're not getting their money's worth. So that's the funny thing. I invested in all these tiny muffin tins and everything, and, came up with a recipe to make the perfect amount of muffins and everything. No one bought them. They wanted the bigger ones. People were like, have you ever thought about making big muffins? I'm like, yes, I have, but no one wants them. So I learned a lot through the cafe. People claim they want one thing, but in reality, they still want the same old thing. Another thing we try to do is, you see, my friend, he was in the coffee industry. He wanted to compete or work alongside, however you want to say it, with the quality coffee companies. So, as one of my cousins used to put it, the foo-foo coffees, the stuff that's like really expensive and, and like a barista who trained in like, underneath several other baristas who knew how to make the perfect cup of coffee with the latte art. We did that kind of thing, but because it had good quality and it tasted good. If you do it right, people enjoy it. And our thing was that the fancy coffee that you get from these artisan coffee places, it's often pretentious. And we said, you know what, we want to introduce fancy coffee, good coffee, to people who are new to it and welcome them in and learn about coffee and where it comes from. And so that was our whole thing. And people loved it. They really did. But we were still relatively new, and we were still relatively unheard of. And we had been doing it for 4 years, and we were building up our business. Things were starting to look on the up and up, We were starting to make profit finally after, paying off some debts. And then the pandemic hit. And after 4 years of, busting my butt, making food, we started off baking, and we just learned that not enough people wanted baked goods. They wanted food in that area, because Laguna Niguel had no breakfast places at that time. So we started making food all the time. And so, I'd be working the whole day. We'd open the cafe at 7 a.m. I'd be there making food for people all through the day. I wouldn't leave until we closed, at 6 or 7 p.m. So I'd be there for anywhere from 12 to 14 hours every day. You know, there was a time when I didn't take days off. I was there every day. Um, I had assistants, so I hired people who worked for me who did the cooking and stuff for my days off. So there were times where I was able to finally take days off. Um, but my business partner, he never took a single day off at all. He was busy every single day. So it was really, really hard. And for the longest time, I personally didn't really make money off of the business because we were paying our employees and we still had a bunch of debts that we had incurred trying to open the place. So, but the pandemic hit in 2020, and that was the final nail in the coffin for our cafe. We just couldn't keep up after that. So, my business partner took the business and downsized it. So if I have it correctly, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but if I have it correctly, it's coffee only currently, and it's being operated out of a small place in San Juan Capistrano. I went my own way, and I moved up here to Portland with my sister and started a different life. I no longer have any desire to work in the food industry, because I've done it. I did it for years. I've been in the food industry essentially since I was 17 years old, and I reached where I wanted to be. You know, I opened one cafe as a chef there, opened my own cafe as a chef as well. So I made it to chef level, went to culinary school, got, you know, what I needed from that. Lived my life as that, but it seemed that it was time for a change. And so that's what happened. It was time for a change. And I like my life currently, right now as it is. I don't have a boss. Well, I haven't had a boss in a long time. With the cafe, I worked 4 years technically as my own boss, but yeah, like I don't have a boss, and and I don't earn as much money as I used to, but ultimately I'm happier. So that's kind of what it's like to have a cafe. It's a lot of work. If you're gonna open your own cafe and stuff, you have to dedicate your life to it. It's a lot of hard work. So, all right. Armis Queen Mary says, "Do all ships have a rudder?" No, modern ships often have what are called they're little pods. So it's a propeller at the end of a pod that's shaped kind of like a rudder, and the whole pod can rotate underneath the ship. And so ships today don't necessarily have to have rudders, but there are still plenty of ships that have rudders. Matthew Mahoney says, "Would you ever work on the Queen Mary?" Depends on what it would be, but yeah. Essentially, if I was a tour guide on the Queen Mary, I'd do it. I was a tour guide for Disneyland, and I enjoyed that. So yeah, depending on what it is on the Queen Mary, I'd do it. Would I work on the Queen Mary as a bus boy or a cook or a chef? No. But would it be something fun? Yeah, I'd do it. I'd definitely do it. I'd do it in a heartbeat if I could. Because I love the Queen Mary. I'd love to spend the rest of my life visiting that ship every single day, if I could. Pony Horton says, "Did you know Disney Parks discontinued the citrus swirl?" No, I didn't know that. Mid-South Explorer says, "Do you miss Southern California?" I miss aspects of Southern California, but not Southern California itself. I miss the Queen Mary. Sometimes I miss Disneyland. But I don't miss Southern California. I don't miss the smog. I don't miss the traffic. I don't miss the congestion of all the people. I don't miss the crime rates. I don't miss the concrete everywhere. I love looking out my windows and seeing hills with forests and fog and wispy mountains with snow. I love looking out my window and seeing that. So I don't miss Southern California for those reasons. I just miss it for Queen Mary and sometimes Disneyland. Jeremy says, opinions on SS Columbia at Disney Sea in Tokyo. It's interesting because they made the SS Columbia as a nod to the fact that originally Disney Sea was going to be built next to the Queen Mary in Long Beach. And since that never went through, when they built Disney Sea, they built the SS Columbia, which looks a lot like the Queen Mary. And that's a little nod to the Queen Mary. But aside from that, I think the SS Columbia in Disney Sea is a gross looking boat. But yeah. Azapods, that's right, Dr. I don't know what that says. Or drdoak.com. Azapods, yes. That's what they are. The little propellers that are on a piece that's shaped like a rudder. Azapods. Gump Happens says, hiya, Alex. Congrats on the new apartment. Thank you so much. Still 44 viewers. I've got to catch up on this tea here. So there's going to be an update soon on the Queen Mary because I learned some new information recently. But one of the things I can tell you right now is while I said lifeboats 1 and 2, which are both called accident boats, they are the shorter, smaller lifeboats at the front. Only one of them is staying on the ship, and that's number 2. Number 2 is staying on the ship. Number 3 lifeboat, which is a full-size, 36-foot long, actual, full lifeboat, is also staying on the ship. That way there's an example of each one. An example of number 2 accident boat and number 3 lifeboat. That's really cool. Because originally I thought it was only going to be the 2 accident boats. And people weren't going to know what it was like to look at a full-size lifeboat. But now they will. Number 1 accident boat has been removed from the Queen Mary. And I think it's going to be sold. Or, I'm sorry, I say sold, but I hear it's actually for free. So the lifeboats, a lot of people are asking, Alex, how much are the lifeboats going to cost? And I tell them it's technically free, but you have to qualify. You have to have experience caring for historic artifacts or preserving historic artifacts. And you have to have a plan in place for how you're going to care for the lifeboat. And then you present that to the city of Long Beach, and they will decide if you will be one of the people who gets to walk home with a lifeboat. But if you think you can meet those standards, try to get one, because it's better than the lifeboat, getting destroyed. I don't think Long Beach will give a lifeboat to anybody who intends to turn it into something else. Some people want to turn it into a speedboat or whatever. I don't think the city of Long Beach will let you do that. I think they only want to give it away to people who are going to preserve them and put them on display. Need to plug in my phone. Tyler Frederick says, "Oh, true that. I loved California a long time ago. Miss my family and friends and Disneyland, especially Queen Mary. Lord knows I miss her. Yeah, I miss the Queen Mary the most. Of course, my family's different. I miss my dad the most. I left my dad in California. I have lots of other family in California. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles. I miss all my family. But when it comes to attractions that I used to visit, I miss the Queen Mary the most. Yeah. I thought I was going to visit Southern California before summer, because originally everybody thought the Queen Mary was going to open before summer, but it seems that's been pushed back to Halloween. Who knows, that might get pushed back again, I don't know, but yeah, so, and frankly, I don't have the money to go down to Southern California at the moment, so I just can't. So, yeah. I have to keep waiting. Coaster Fanboy says, I want to be in ride maintenance at Disneyland for a job this year. Do you know if they require schooling/college for that, or do they just teach you on the job site? Schooling helps, but that depends on what you're doing. If you're a mechanic repairing the robotics, then you need to have an education in robotics. If you're a mechanic repairing like ride vehicles, like let's say a CNG vehicle, you got to have, you know, a mechanic's education. If you're repairing the Disneyland Railroad, you have to have experience repairing steam engines. But if you're just a guy going around changing light bulbs, repainting things, fixing tables and chairs, that kind of maintenance, you have to have at least 2 years, I think, or is it 5? It's either 2 or 5 years of experience doing that thing somewhere else. So if you're inexperienced, you've never done that before, you have to work at another job for, I think it's 5 years before you can apply to work at Disney as a maintenance person. Maintenance is one of the few departments at Disney where they will hire people, as they say, off the street. But you have to have experience. All other jobs at Disney, you know, like if you're going to be a manager of a restaurant, they don't hire off the street. They hire from within the company. But yeah, so if you want to be a maintenance person, you have to get 5 years, 2 to 5 years of experience doing that same job somewhere else. Jeffrey says, hi Alex, I was in the Golden Horseshoe this weekend and it was kind of a mess. Some of the light fixtures were broken. Ceiling had black dust. Was sad to see. Yep, that's what I remember. The light fixtures were often broken. I used to go in there and you wouldn't even know. The light fixtures along the walls and stuff, they look like they're made of like black metal, but they're actually brass. They are real, honest to goodness brass. I went in there one day in like 2010 and I was like, I bet these are brass. So I went in there with brass polish and I started polishing all of them because it was a slow day. There was nobody there. So I was like, why don't I just spend the time polishing the brass? So I did. I polished all the brass of all the wall sconces and the lights and things like that. They were beautifully brass colored. I remember my lead came out and she goes, oh, did they replace the light fixtures? And I was like, no, I polished them. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, these were all tarnished. I was like, no one's been polishing them for years. I was like, so I polished all of them. And she was like, oh my God, I never knew they were made of brass. And I was like, yeah, like they were just really badly tarnished. And so I polished all of them. The whole restaurant glittered with the brass color. It was so nice. But then that tarnished after like a year, you know. Well, I mean, it tarnished after a couple of months, but it became darker and darker until a year later it was back to being super dark again. And no one ever polished it after that. So, yeah, but I did go there and I polished them all. It was so funny. Let's see. Nancy Armilla says, do you know the story of the person that passed away on the Mark Twain a long time ago? No, I don't. I haven't heard of that. I hope you're not talking about the person that was hit in the head. That was on a different ship, and that was for a different reason. Mr. Dude says, do you still operate that bakery? No, I live in a completely different state now. I live 1,000 miles away. I am no longer in contact with the people I used to know back then. So I live a completely different life now. So, yeah. Derpy says, gotta go. Best of luck for the rest of your day. You too, Derpy. Brad says, Alex, do you know if the Queen Mary still has her rudder attached, or was that removed with the screws during her conversion? The Queen Mary still has her rudder. Yeah, she still has that. And the one remaining propeller that was left in the propeller box, they recently cleaned the propeller box out. So As you know, people drop coins and money in there and stuff. So they recently cleaned it out, and I heard the propeller looks nice now. So yeah, but she still has her rudder. Yes. At the time, she had the largest rudder ever built for a ship. It weighed as much. It weighed as much as the Mayflower. Nancy says, how many original rides are left at Disneyland? Oh, I don't want to count them all. Mr. Dude says, would you ever do warship history? I might do the history of a warship if it had a really interesting story. I'm not generally the kind of person that likes war subjects. You know, like the Queen Mary subject had to be told. Not enough people were talking about it. So I made a 3-part series about the Queen Mary's war years, only because people were like, oh yeah, she transported troops. I'm like, no, there was much more to it. She won the Battle of El Alamein. She, you know, this and that, all these things. And so I made it for that reason, but not because I was interested in World War II or anything like that. So when I do videos on warships, I can't say no, but it's certainly not on my list of priorities. I'm probably going to keep making videos about ocean liners. I have a long list of passenger ships that are all steam powered that people want me to talk about. So I have to get through that list. Coaster Fanboy says, do you think the Autopia and Finding Nemo submarine voyages days are numbered? Every time I say yes, then they extend the ride's lifetime. So I'm just going to say no, because I've said yes so many times in the past, and then the Disney just goes, oh, it's going to be here for years to come. So yeah, it's not numbered. Mysterious Wanderer says, do a video on the USS Iowa or the USS Alabama. I just don't want to. I have great respect for the ships, but it doesn't catch my interest the way like certain stories do. Yeah, I don't even do just any passenger ships either, because I've had suggestions for certain passenger ships and I've researched them and I'm like, that's not a very interesting story. You know, like I like to tell a story that either touches your heart in a way that makes you sad, happy, or, you know, just want to root for the ship or whatever. That's the stories I make. Because those are the ones I think that really stand out. But I do know I will make videos on Queen Elizabeth, QE2, you know, other ships like that. I have books on Oceanic and Mauritania and Lusitania. I really want to get on all those subjects and tell multiple videos about those ships. It's just taking time. Research takes so much time. Cornea says, did you see my previous comment? Alex, you must remember that we all love you. And SS Columbia at Tokyo Disney Sea has the White Star Line yellow stripe and the Cunard white stripe. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. But thank you. Pony Horton says, Alex, pretty sure Walt was very happy that you made his favorite place in Disneyland look proud. Yeah, thanks. Daniel says, are you eating chocolate digestives? They are the best for tea dunking. Yes, I am eating chocolate digestives. I love having them for tea. I also was eating Scottish shortbread. I finished the Scottish shortbread. Okay. Matthew Mahoney says, what's happening to the submarine next to Queen Mary? So a lot of people have been asking about that. the submarine next to Queen Mary, it currently has no owners. It was owned by a company, I think it's called Nemco, Nemco, and I think it was personally owned by one of the head executives of that company. It was falling into disrepair. They didn't have the money to fix it up, so that company gave it to Urban Commons, but Urban Commons claims they never actually signed any agreement. And from what they say, that's kind of true, that they haven't signed any agreement to say that it belongs to them. Problem is, the former owner from Nemco, first of all, Nemco is no longer a major company anymore. You know, they're still on paper a company, but there's nobody in charge of Nemco anymore. I think they're completely, like, gone. And the former, executive that owned it from Nemco, he is elderly, like very elderly, and he doesn't have the money to fix it up or remove it. He's really old, from what I hear. So at the moment, there is a legality problem because there is currently no owner for the submarine. And the submarine is in such bad disrepair. It's very important you guys know this because a lot of people think, oh, well, those submarines were built, to last. Yeah, they are, but they're not built to last when water gets inside of them. That's when they rot out, and that's exactly what happened. The what do they call it? The pressure bulkhead or the pressure wall, I forget what it's called, burst a long time ago. Burst in like 2012, and water came in, and it partially flooded the submarine. But after all these years of the water just sitting there, rotting out the hull even further, the whole thing is now filled with water. Not all the way to the top, but it is filled with water, I think a few feet. And because of that, it accelerated the decay of the submarine. Parts of the hull are now worn to the strength of a tissue paper. There is no hull strength at all. It's floating because of air pockets inside of it. That's what's keeping it up. And it's severely corroded. It's infested with raccoons, rats, and birds. And those animals have burrowed holes into the hull of the submarine. And an engineering firm, I forget what they're called. The engineering firm that surveyed the Queen Mary last year also surveyed the submarine to see what needs to be done to either fix it or get it out of there. They determined the submarine is not salvageable for profit. It's not like you can't reopen it and use it as a tourist attraction because it's so badly decayed, both the inside and the outside. And if you tried to remove it, which would cost about $5 million, if you tried to lift it out of the water, it's so badly decayed it would break apart to pieces, which is an environmental problem because then the EPA is going to come over and say, oh, hold on, you guys need to do this correctly because it's falling apart and it's entering our water. So there is a lot of issues going on with that submarine. And of course, no one has the $5 million necessary to get it out of there. So it really is in a limbo. There's no one to pay that money. The city might be able to do that if they get like emergency money for it, but they need to answer to someone, because if it is owned by somebody who hasn't stepped forward yet, that person could claim that, that the city owes them money because they got rid of their property. So there's a big legal issue right now that's ongoing with the submarine. If water continues to flood the submarine and it continues to rot, it could sink. It is currently tethered to the Queen Mary. So it is tethered to the dock, but it's also tethered to the bow of the Queen Mary, which could damage the Queen Mary if the submarine sank because it's connected by cables to the submarine, or to the Queen Mary. So there's a lot of issues happening with that submarine. It is not salvageable. If they brought it out of the water, half of it is gone. It's rotted away, and there's no way to save it. And anything inside that was worth saving is probably rotten to the point where restoring it would just cost way more money than it's worth. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's an ongoing issue. So they're not done with it. They're gonna try to remove it, but again, they have to solve the legality issue first. So let's see. Daniel Leatherdale says, as a British man, I'm proud you're drinking tea the correct way. Thank you. I'm trying. And I don't know how long you've been watching, but I'm also drinking it on an authentic Cunard tea service from Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth. So it's authentically British tea. It's an Twinings Earl Grey. Everything is done as best I can the proper way, finger sandwiches and proper British pastries. So yeah, I like to try different things, different cultures. You know, like I said this morning, I made myself an authentic cup of what's it called? Ginger cardamom chai tea, which I make instead of coffee every morning. Sometimes I'll make ginger cardamom chai tea from scratch. So I like to try to do things traditional. Coronia says, how many sugars are in the digestive biscuits? I don't know. I don't have the package in front of me. I don't think it has very much sugar, to be honest, because a lot of British tea pastries don't contain as much sugar generally as American pastries do. And it doesn't taste all that sweet either. It's pretty mild in terms of sweetness. Pony Horton says, I've said for years that Disneyland should retire the Nemo theme and rebuild the submarine attraction based upon their IMAX film Ghosts of the Abyss. In other words, a voyage to the Titanic. Ooh, that's scary. Kind of a scary theme, don't you think? For Disneyland. Mysterious Wanderer says, does the same company that owned the sub next to the Queen Mary own the same one that was just scrapped in San Diego? I don't think so. I think it's two different companies. Arms Queen Mary says, of your favorite, which one is your favorite, the Scottish shortbread or the chocolate digestives? Oh, that's difficult. I like both so much. The digestives and the Scottish shortbread are so good. But I'd have to say the Scottish shortbread, and the reason why is because it reminds me of like when my grandma and I would open like a tin of shortbread cookies and have them together while watching a movie late at night. So it reminds me of something I did with my grandma, and so I'd have to say the Scottish shortbread is my favorite of the two. But it's a close call because the chocolate digestives are so good when you dip it with the tea. So, Pony Horton says pressure hole, yeah. And raccoons, huh? They should rechristen her the SS Trash Panda. Yeah, there's a huge raccoon infestation in there, in that submarine. Last time we were there, me and my friends were just staring at it, watching the raccoons come in and out of it. Thomas Brooks says, Alex, when the Queen Mary reopens, do you think that they will sell the replica china again? It's hard to say because the company that operated the Queen Mary is gone. You know, so when it reopens, it'll be operated by the city of Long Beach. So there might be some operational changes, you know, merchandise vendors might be switched out for different merchandise vendors. So it's really hard to say. You know, if it was the same company, then we could be fairly confident that maybe they might sell the same things. But yeah, it's not the same anymore. So hard to say. Yep. Alright, so let me finish this tea sandwich because it's already getting kind of stale because it's been out for an hour and a half, but the tea sandwiches are my favorite. That tea sandwich has been out for an hour and 40 minutes, and it was still cold. That's how cold it is in my apartment. What's the temperature outside? It's 33 degrees outside. That's a degree above freezing. And it's probably like 60 degrees in here. So my tea sandwich was still cold. Matthew Mahoney says, what do you think about Dark Harbor? I hate it. I agree, Matthew Mahoney. So, look, here's something a lot of people don't know about me. So I used to design and build haunt mazes for Halloween. My friend had a nonprofit that built haunt mazes for hospitals, because a lot of, like, some of the hospitals that we would build for had patients who are recovering from major surgeries, and they're usually living at the hospital for an extended period, like a couple weeks to a couple months, recovering from their various surgeries or other issues, or even cancer, that kind of thing. So he and I would make deals with these hospitals. The hospitals would pay for our supplies. We would build and design the haunt mazes, and we would bring in our friends from they used to be our friends worked at various places like Knott's Halloween Haunt, Universal's Nights of Terror, or whatever it's called, and they would volunteer their time working our haunt maze for a couple of nights just prior to Halloween and on Halloween night, if they had the time. And so it was really cool. So I used to do that. So I have a certain respect for haunt mazes. But that being said, when it comes to the Queen Mary, the haunt mazes and the Dark Harbor that was installed inside and around the Queen Mary has damaged the ship. Even right now, there is a haunt maze inside the Queen Mary that they never cleaned up. It's still sitting around there, because instead of taking it down every year and putting all the stuff away, I don't know what it was, maybe they just figured we can leave it here every year and not have to waste time putting it all up. But either way, they've left a bunch of stuff down there in the haunt maze inside the ship, which is now a fire hazard, because a lot of haunt mazes are built with wood and flammable materials. So, so the problem is that those haunt mazes have damaged the ship. They have, removed some areas of the ship to make way for the haunt maze. They have built things into parts of the ship for the haunt maze. They've back in the olden days when they still had the swimming pool open, they bolted a giant speaker to the rare tile ceilings of the first class swimming pool area. They bolted things to those walls. So the haunt mazes of the ship has, both in the past and currently, damaged the Queen Mary. I believe if they're going to do Dark Harbor, do it on the pier, where they can build a custom haunt maze for themselves. Do it in there. Don't do it on the ship. It's hurting the ship. The ship is much more important than a Halloween attraction. So that is my little rant about the haunt maze for Queen Mary. So, let's see. RMS Queen Mary says, why do people say that the Queen Mary is haunted? Well, people have experienced a lot of stuff on the Queen Mary, so sometimes people who believe in ghosts, for instance, might see something on the Queen Mary. And sometimes people who don't believe in ghosts will see something and believe in ghosts because they saw something on the Queen Mary. I'm not going to knock anybody who thinks it's haunted. because I do personally believe that there are ghosts, but I I personally haven't seen any ghosts on the Queen Mary. I've seen TV shows where they've gone on the Queen Mary and they'll be like, oh, there's a dark portal to hell on the Queen Mary, and this place is full of evil spirits. And I've been on the Queen Mary, and it was such a happy and lovely ship. There was no sign of evil anywhere. It was a nice ship, you know. But I do have friends who say that they have seen ghosts on the Queen Mary. Maybe not necessarily evil ghosts, but they've seen ghosts or felt ghosts on the Queen Mary. And I don't want to be like, oh, that's not true, because I've been to the Golden Horseshoe at Disneyland. I know that there are ghosts there, so who's to say? Maybe the Queen Mary is haunted. Maybe it's haunted with happy ghosts, but I don't believe there is a portal to hell on the Queen Mary. I don't believe it's haunted by evil spirits. I think if there are spirits on there, it's haunted by happy spirits. And of course, some spirits that are famous on the Queen Mary are entirely made up. You know, like Jackie in the swimming pool. She's not real. She was invented by the Walt Disney Company so that way they could sell tickets to their Halloween time back when they had the Queen Mary. So there's a lot of stuff on there that was literally invented by Disney. You know, the room B340. It's not really haunted. Disney built that into a haunted attraction room in 1989. And they invented all the stories behind it. Oh, it's been closed all these years because people were experiencing ghosts in the room. And no, it's not true. Disney designed the experience. It was full of animated special effects that made you think you see ghosts in there. Of course, Disney removed all the special effects after they left because that's, you know, proprietary. They removed all the special effects. But the idea of B340 being a haunted room remained, you know. And they would say, oh, this was a first-class room, and it's like, well, on the Queen Mary, B340 was actually a bunch of third-class rooms. It was 5 third-class staterooms, not one first-class room. So there's stuff. So, but yeah, I'm not going to knock people who think the Queen Mary's haunted, but I don't believe it is haunted by evil spirits. I don't believe there's a portal to hell there. I don't believe, you know. And then the story about, you know, oh, one guy murdered his family there. No, that happened at the guy's house. He murdered his family at his house, and the family never stayed on the Queen Mary. The great-grandmother did, and she was not even there when it happened, you know. So it's just, you know, stories are taken and then they're, like, blown up several times to make the Queen Mary look like it's this haunted place. It's all marketing. It's all marketing. There might be ghosts on there, but nothing as crazy as what they market for Halloween. So, Brad says, wouldn't it be great of the team who made Titanic Honor and Glory create a 3D Queen Mary game as she was pre-war / post-war? I wish I could walk the ship before the conversion gutted her. That would be nice. I'd love to see that, actually. Haley says it's called Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. Yeah, that's the name. Tyler says, well said, I never thought of that when my friends took me to Dark Harbor. Yeah, there's a lot of damage. Like, I used to be, so remember I said as part of my volunteer services, I helped design the Haunt Maze and build it. But I also had my own character. I had this expensive costume. It was like I had a mask that went over my face. It was a custom mask, went over my face. I looked like a skeleton, like a skull with eyes, and like really long black hair and stuff like that. I had these gloves that are designed so if you scrape them against a surface, they spark. And I used to love doing that. I used to go in there through the maze and I'd scare the living daylights out of people. I never scared children though. We had a rule: don't scare little kids. That's not fair. So we'd let them walk by. But if there was adults who wanted to be scared, we'd scare the crap out of them. What was my point? My point was, my point was that a lot of our haunt people part of how we scare people is making loud noises. And the most common way to make loud noises is to bang your hands against walls, windows, doors, anything that's around you that's solid. That banging causes damage to said objects. So on the Queen Mary, they've done that too. There's like pock marks in the steel hull walls because over the years the haunt people with their metal gloves and stuff have banged little notches into the walls. It's just yeah. So things like that damage the ship. So Armis Queen Mary says, in the steamships, why are the funnels slightly moved back? Why are they tilted backwards? Well, for one thing, it is slightly part of aerodynamics. So there's a few things going on. So one, the ships have to be somewhat aerodynamic to decrease the costs of fuel. One of the ways they do that is to make the funnels sweep backwards, or as they call them, raking backwards. So that helps the funnel to cut through the air. That helps. It's not perfect. But the other thing too is that they can design the top of the funnel in such a way that with it raked back like that, when the wind hits it, it'll scoop the smoke out of the funnel and high up into the sky. The Queen Mary was a good example of how that worked, because when her smoke went up and she was going at full speed, the smoke would go straight into the air sometimes. And so it's just a good design. So they could do stuff like that. That's why if you see old pictures of the Queen Mary and you look on the back side of the black part of the funnel, you'll see little notches in it. That helped the air behind it scoop upwards and lift the smoke out of the funnel. So that's one of the ways that they did that. And then, of course, lastly, the raking of the funnels was also an aesthetic choice as well. Because technically, you could still operate a ship with perfectly straight funnels, but a raked funnel makes the ship look fast, looks like it's speeding. So those three reasons are why the funnels are raked backwards on a lot of steamships. Let's see here. Let's see here. And Tyler says, I don't like people scaring kids. Yeah, we didn't like that either. When me and my friend would operate the haunt mazes, we had a rule. We told all of our volunteers, we're like, don't scare children. It's not fair, because adults, they can handle themselves. Kids can't handle themselves, It's too scary. So whenever we would see a kid, we always peeked around corners to make sure that people were coming. That's how we prepared for how we were going to scare them. We can watch their behavior. So another thing we did was we had rules. Like if you see a person walking and their eyes are just like glass and they're just walking like a zombie, that person is in a form of fear that is like fight or flight mode, basically. But we call it locking up, because when a person is so scared, their body will revert to like an instinct where they are motionless, and scaring them further will only give them like a heart attack. So if we saw that, either we didn't scare them, or we would alert. We had volunteers who wore all black. We call them blackouts, because they would be in the corner wearing all black. They were there to help escort people out of the maze if there was an emergency or something. But sometimes we'd see people like that who locked up, and I'd go over to the blackout and say, hey, this person's locked up, you should get them out of here. And they'd go and escort the person out, so that way they didn't, they could calm down. Because when you're in a haunt maze sometimes, and you've never been in one before, you'll get the feeling like there's no way out. And that's exactly the feeling we want people to feel like. We want you to be scared, so we want you to feel like the only way out is to get through the whole thing. So we would do stuff like that. And of course, if I looked around the corner and I saw kids, we wouldn't scare them. I'd probably just stand there and look kind of menacing, but I wouldn't do anything. I'd just stand there. But if there was people walking around the corner who looked like they were enjoying what they were doing, then I tried to scare the living daylights out of them. You know, like I said, my gloves sparked and stuff, so I'd hit objects and they would spark and scare people. My friend had a chainsaw, so what was really cool was, don't do this unless you're an experienced haunt person, because I know people will try to do this, but he had a special chainsaw that was modified that the chain was off of it. There was no sharp parts to the chainsaw. It was just a motor that went rah, rah. And he would start it up, and people would be walking down this misty hallway. They'd get to the end, they can't see anything, and all they hear is rah, rah, and they'd see him emerge from the fog with his chainsaw. I remember this one lady, she screamed so loudly, and she was like, "Ah, what are you doing with that? You're gonna kill somebody!" And my friend had to try not to break character. He was laughing so hard. At the end of the maze, she was like telling the workers, and she's like, "That person has a chainsaw. You're gonna kill somebody." They're like, "Ma'am, it doesn't have a chain on it. It's just the motor, and it's just making loud noise. You know." It's it was so funny. I miss those days, but I'm too old to do that now. Corina Polk says, "Have you scared a kid accidentally?" Well, I mean, of course. I mean, I don't intend to scare kids, but when they walk past me and they see my skull face and my, dark suit and my metal, gloves with the spikes on them, yeah, they get scared. They're in a haunt maze, so yeah, they get scared, but I've never intentionally scared a child in a haunt maze. That's just, again, like I said, that's not fair to kids. They're, if they're teenagers, that's different. Problem with teenagers is teenagers hit back. I've gotten punched a few times by teenagers because they get scared and their automatic instinct is to punch and stuff like that. So you got to be able to take punches. I can't do that job anymore. It's too hard. It's for young people to do. But yeah, so. But an interesting rule is like one of the things that makes or breaks a haunt maze is that you see, every haunt maze has at least one rule that they always follow. You can't touch people in a haunt maze. So if the person understands that, that can break the illusion. So I remember one time this group of teenagers came in, and they were laughing their way through the whole thing. And they looked at me and you're like, you're not scary. We know you can't touch us. You just got to sit there and look scary. And so I just let them pass by. I didn't really care because it ruins the illusion once you know that they can't touch you. It's like, But I do remember they got to the end and they did not expect that chainsaw. And the three guys were like, "Oh my God!" And they ran out after the chainsaw. So that was funny. Oh, good. Let's see. Tyler Frederick says, "Another thing, I agree about not being evil spirits on the ship, but what happened to my friend on Queen Mary was scary." Yeah, I bet it was. It's not pleasant to see that kind of thing. Nancy says, "Do you see yourself in the future going to Disneyland and making more videos?" Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not on my priority list, but next time I do go to Disneyland, it's going to be for a one-time visit because I don't have the money to be there all the time. Because I live 1,000 miles away. For some people who don't know that, I live in Portland, but I live 1,000 miles away. So next time I go to Disneyland, it's going to be a one-day thing. I'm mostly going to try to enjoy myself with my friends. But I will try to film some things. There's rides that I want to talk about that I don't have enough footage to show, so I need to go there and film B-roll footage of the rides and the outside and stuff like that, the way I need to film it. So there will be some things like that, but I might even do a live stream too while I'm at Disneyland. But again, I have no plans to visit Disneyland anytime soon. I don't have the money for it. I don't have the way to get down there. And yeah, it's not on my on my plans right now. So, let's see there. FIFO says, I own a special edition bar menu, one of only 15 from the 1960 Cunard QE2 Final World Cruise. I wonder if one day the bar menu shall become a collector's item. The menu was made aboard the ship. Nice. It might be. One day, yeah. Let it sit for another decade or two, and I'm sure it will be worth something. Maybe even longer it'll be worth something. So, Coronia Polk says, I got scared as a kid at one haunt maze, and a man in a monster lizard suit scared me so bad that I just curled up in a ball and just cried, and I effectively shut down the entire maze. Yeah, I've seen stuff like that happen. You know, people get so scared they just cower, you know. So it's, yeah, it's times like that we have to stop what we're doing. Because I remember we had several times where the blackouts would come up to me and they'd say, okay, we're pausing the maze right now because we have to escort someone out because they're like that scared, you know, they have to be escorted out. So we turn on the lights of that section, and then the person would be allowed to get out of the maze. Then we turn the lights back off and then, you know, redo everything. So yeah, it happens. Goofy Roll says, Disneyland in my memories is still much better than Disneyland of reality today. Yep, that's true. I miss the old Disneyland from my childhood. It was so fun. But yeah, it's already 6:03. I am going to end this live stream. We've already been on for 2 hours. Every time I only expect to do this for 1 hour, and then all of a sudden I'm on here for 2 hours. I'm having so much fun that I just can't keep track of time, but that's ice cold. But I'm having a lot of fun, so I want to thank everybody for joining me. The next tea time will be, what's today, Tuesday? Thursday. Next tea time will be Thursday. Again, 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's tea time for the Pacific. I'm sorry, my brain is, I'm getting tired. But I have to work on the video when I get back to my computer. I have to try to edit together a video. Be sure to check out my second channel, Alex Adner, A-D-N-E-R. There's only like 2 videos on there currently, but in the coming days and weeks, more and more stuff will be added to that channel. All stuff that has to relate to all my interests, everything historically, you know, ocean liners, trains, games about ocean liners and trains, will be on that channel. Eventually, when I have my railroad set up here, you'll see me building that on that channel. So that's my more personal channel. Alex the Historian is my documentary type channel. So anyway, yeah, so thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all on Thursday or next time. And yeah, bye-bye.